15th. It's the middle of May. 15 days have gone. 2 weeks have gone. And here we are. I am very, very impressed with how these days are going. I suppose we can see much more of how the things are going in terms of the COVID-19 shutdown. And so that's why we're here actually, because of the COVID-19 shutdown. And it's almost just a shut with a down because we are some islands and some countries are in different phases of regrouping and coming back to what is called normalcy. But yet we have this new normal that we are all professing, and we are encouraged to establish the new normal. So, what are we going to be talking about today? I wish I could hear from you. What do you want to talk about today? There's so much still happening out there. We have been talking about establishing ourselves from the last 7 weeks, which is our 8th week now, uh, forward, how we are going forward and how we are going to be working through the next month, because we are just trapped still within our minds as to where we're going, and we are still somewhere not comfortable about how we're being taken there. So, whatever your release has been, or whatever change of protocol you've had, you are going to have to redeem some context and redeem some issues in terms of how you reestablish the future. Last time we spoke about going back into the environment, new environments, working the system. And we looked at the fact that you have worked it for the last 8 weeks. And so, therefore, uh, yeah, I see managing hidden constraints and restrictions. Yes. Uh, yeah, so that we looked at the past in terms of where we started, how we quickly adjusted, how we quickly came into this shutdown. And yet we had our problems, but yet we had to manage it. Some of us did manage better than others. Some people were able to work out their management. And unfortunately for some of us, it was by ourselves rather than with company. But nevertheless, we have sorted to see the changes and the difference. I know people are still, after the 8 weeks, are still scampering within their own emotions. But I want to help us address that problem differently in terms of the way we go forward. Somebody just wrote on about managing restrictions and um, hidden issues with hidden directives. Because what we realize is that people are saying things, but they're not saying exactly what's in their mind. One, people are saying things, but not really telling you what they want you to hear or what you need to hear. And people are saying things hoping that you will add to what they say because this is maybe you would like them to have some part of the initiative and the innovation. But that's not how the brain will be working, especially when it's shut down. Now, notice I said when it is shut down because what has happened, you've had to realize also that your brain had to slow down. I remember we had spoken about fasting, and I said to you that I was encouraged by a friend who said to me, if I'm fasting for 5 days, I need to remember after the fifth day, I need to wait for 5 days to get back to eating. I was also told whatever number, 21 days, but it takes just as many days to get back to normalcy as it would take to get out of the normalcy. So here you are, having 8 weeks, let's say 8 weeks, gone already, coming out of a particular frame where the brain would have shut down. It's just like how the stomach would have shut down in terms of eating. The stomach would not have been working as hard, working at all, and it would have slowed down to from working at hard to working, not working at all, just barely water maybe for some of you. And we talk about basically absolute fast. And so that would have happened, and then you'd have kept that going for a period of time, and then all of a sudden you want to go back into heavy food. No. So that just as how that stomach shut down, the enzymes would have not been able to be working, the acids would have been there normalizing themselves. So it is too with the brain. The brain would not have had as much information in it as it usually does. The brain would not have had that kind of activity as it usually does. The brain would not have had those kinds of responses, and therefore neurotransmitters would not have been firing as much as and getting all the adrenaline and all the glands working for your good. We realized that there would have been lesser information coming in, and therefore a retardation of responses. Therefore, activity will be slowed down. Here am I now, looking at the future as wanting to get back there. Hello. We have to recondition the brain again, bringing back information as much as we would have had before. Now, some of us may have scored on this, in that you'd have kept reading, kept talking, kept doing things that was in line with your profession, kept or in line of the kinds of protocols that you would have kept and schedules you would have kept. But yet, it would have been minimized. For some of us like me, it increased. And therefore, I have always been looking, reading and studying and teaching. So therefore, my only constraint was movement, in terms of I did not dress and go out and drive and come back. But I was now seated. Is that good English? I was sitting, or I was seated. I think that's a testimony. I think I need to talk a little bit more what's in particular context. So here am I, seated every day in one space, and having therefore to exercise and get up and move, which took another orientation from me. So that there is that need to see how the brain would have recalibrated itself into slowing down, into formulating. And now, I am working a capacity here of sitting in front of a system and staring at a screen with earphones on and listening, hearing and listening. This is not music, where I can maybe lie back and, and close my eyes. No, I have to be alert. I have to be following PowerPoints. I have to be following construct deliveries, and I have to respond, so that I'm engaged with a screen. Now they say you're not supposed to be looking for a screen for too long, maybe half hour, but here am I teaching for an hour and a half. And for 2 hours, you're looking at one screen, and so that you have a little jitter here and a little jitter there. You move, you sway, you turn around. You have to do some things, so that when I am seeing all that, in order to re-establish leverage and homeostasis within me, how do I now transition that outside of me? Of all of this nice 8 weeks I've had, maybe a little struggle here and there, but now I have to go back to what I used to do. Do I want to do what I used to do? Do I want to get up every morning and go out somewhere and face the traffic? Wow. Do I really want to do that? Yeah. Okay. So I face the traffic and I go into my office. It's different. There are less people there, and that's what I like about the suggestion about today in terms of managing those hidden restrictions and hidden agendas. Because I come back into the office, or I come back into a working arena, and I am not going to be told exactly what I can do now, because what has to be done has not yet been fleshed out. Managers, CEOs, administrators, public service executives have not really planned out how and what we're going to do now. Your regime, your routine, your schedule would have been such, involving maybe 100 people a day or maybe more. But now, how am I going to work out this regime with 20 people a day or even less? How am I going to do that? What am I going to do in that time? You see, so I have the same time to do less work, less interaction. Wow. Nobody said that to me, but yet there's an expectation of how I perform. There's an expectation of how I will behave. So that here am I sitting in the office from 8 or 9, and I am having one person come to me at let's say 9:15, and the next one comes at 10:30. The next one I might see after lunch, because I am not having the same kind of protocols in terms of my regime, in terms of how I am going to function. Now, my boss has an idea of how I must work, but he is not sharing that with me. It's not written. There's no flow chart, so to speak, as to say how am I going to engage in this next few days. Oh, by the way, lunchtime comes. Oh, it's 12 o'clock. Where am I getting lunch? Oh, yes. Let's see the place that I used to go to often for lunch, if they're still operating. And by the way, I cannot sit down there and eat. So that where do I have lunch? In the lunchroom? Okay, there must be a lunchroom. And if there's none, my desk. So that there are going to be shifts in terms of even acquiring lunch and eating that lunch and working through that lunch hour to come back for 1 o'clock to continue working with my few clients, whether it's in whatever capacity there is going to be interaction. So I'm going to have less. Honestly, also, we're going to have less people in the office if we are going to be sharing times and having that flexi time. So I make my office usually has, let's say, 10 people. Let's use the number 10. Now I may have 5. Oh, so therefore I have half of who I accustomed having. So my noise constraint is going to be less. The conversations are going to be less. We have to work that out also. So however you see it today, we are going to be having these issues of how to recalibrate and be different in terms of my couple of weeks ahead. In our island here in the Caribbean, we have phases from 1 to 6. There's anxiety already of how to get to phase 4 or phase 5. We're just in phase 1. We are just in phase 1. Is anybody going to find phase 3 and phase 5? No. Every 2 weeks, we have to wait on the 2 weeks. But I tell you, as I started earlier, that the days are really run ahead. It's already May, and it's already the 15th of May. So, we are just going to be in June like that, without even breathing much. So that you don't have to worry about the next 2 weeks and whether you're going to get into phase 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. It's going to happen, be sure. But what we have to do is to begin to go in our minds, get a piece of paper and a pencil, write down what phase 3 represents, and see how will I be ready for that. Can I get ready for that phase? So whatever island you're in, whatever circumstances you are working with, you have to start planning ahead of how to handle those transitions. I tell you, it's not going to be like a norm in terms of, I'm accustomed to. There are going to be differences in how I work those norms that are going to be put at me, wanting to be normal, but yet not normal. Wanting to be the same, but yet not the same. So I have to really recalibrate the context of how I am going to work the next couple of weeks, looking at the fact that I have to go as slow as I got here is as slow as I have to get back there. And I really commend the government here of not just saying go. The way we were phased out is to phase in, rather. Now we are being phased out. And so that I commend that very, very highly, because it is important for us to realize that our very psyche cannot just take an open market right now. We are going to have big issues about where we're going and how we're going. Let me pause here from that to the left. And I'm going to share something here. Just to tap you tired. We have been talking about this whole thing of the different world and how we have worked it. Now, what is going to happen here in our memory banks is that we have stored things episodically. We've had experiences, and this COVID has been an episode. We won't forget it, would we? But where is it? So that we have to remember that as we go through even the stages back to normalcy, we are going to have episodes that are we're going to have to note. Just for instance, how do I work out time and space? So I've been working at my desk, whether 2 days a week or 3 days a week, working at my desk, at my house. The environment there is different. The environment there is notably different. Therefore, what's happening to me now as I have to go out? The environment there is going to be different again. So I'm going to be having to work, maybe doing the same scheduling or the same function in another environment. So that when we talk about getting back to normalcy, we really have to see the transition from what is the reality. The reality is not so much that I am working. The reality is how I interpret my time with my space. So I got out of my bedroom, get into my kitchen, maybe have some breakfast, go down to my computer. So I'm doing that in less time. Now I have to get up earlier. I have to get ready. I have to go to have breakfast. Then I have to leave the house and drive. When last have you done that? That is going to have its own pressure on you in terms of the time and space. So I have to rush or go faster to get to my job at a particular time. When I am there, I am not going to have the same experience, that physical experience, as I was having some weeks ago at my house. So again, we have to work out that brain, how we are refunctioning, because the information coming in now is different. So how do I relate that in context of managing those that new agenda? How do I work that? What am I to say about that? Now, when we talk about emotions and when we talk about trauma, we are realizing, yes, that we may have been traumatized in terms of the COVID coming to us, and all of a sudden everything's taken away, no control, etc. Now I am going back out to regain control. I'm going to be maybe again traumatized of how there's going to be resistance to that control, because I may not even know how to work that control, because I have less people in my space. So I may have to be repeating for this first 5 or rather for the second 5 what was told to this first 5. I have to do something differently with that 5. Did I remember what I did with the first 5 or the second 5? Did I write it down? Did I document it? So that those are new things for us. And that's what we're talking about, those hidden agendas, that those secret things, or rather those unknown factors that I am not spelling out. So that when I go back out and I go in front of a classroom, how do I work with face-to-face now? Because I've been working online for a while. I have to re-engage my brain and say, hey, these people are real here. And I can see them. Right now, I'm seeing names, maybe. A few of them I may see their faces. But I see names, basically names. I'm working with names. Nobody wants to really show where they are in their own environment. So that I have to now come away from that and look at faces and then find names. Now I have names trying to find faces. But then I will have to see faces and then find names. So you see, there is that conflict already in me now looking to find a name before I wanted to face. So where am I? In a juncture here where I am in between a particular dynamic. One, seeing names only and wanting to see faces, then seeing faces only and wanting to find names. And so therefore, that is the difference I have to work out. I have to be careful now. Before I could, if there's too much talk, I could put everybody on mute. Now I will have to say silence. And when I say silence, I will still get some echo somewhere, somebody's still talking, but when I mute, there's silence. So again, those kind of dynamics will encourage emotions. So I have to be careful now. How do I work these new emotions in terms of, hey, shut up, are you still talking? You see, last week, 2 weeks ago, when I said silence, I just mute everybody. And they could talk what they want, I wasn't hearing them. But now I'm hearing them. So I myself have to find a measure of cognitive re-identity in terms of the space and the dynamics in which I work. So I have to give myself the opportunity of transitioning and bringing that with some leverage to remember I am not to create another conflict. So if I hear the question, are you hearing me? Whew, that question is now becoming a norm because everybody's asking it, are you hearing me? Because once you go online, you see, are you hearing me? Yes, we are hearing you. But now, when I go to class, I don't expect to hear, am I hearing you? I'm in the classroom. So that there's some phrases, there's some that we have had to use over the last 8 weeks because of the shutdown that we have to change and get rid of in the days to come. So I want to encourage you. So those are some factors that we have to look. If I go back home now and I'm saying goodbye or see you later, I haven't got to say that because we were both in the same space. So now, and now when you go out, I expect you back, you come back a particular hour. Now you're taking longer. How do I work out those differences in terms of time and space? So these are some things that you need to be hearing and looking at in the next couple of days in order for you to redefine that context of that difference in terms of my transitioning back to what is called the new normal. I'm not too sure if it's going to how long that word new is going to be real, because normal doesn't take long to establish itself. We were just saying to people Happy New Year, but that happy is gone and that New Year is gone, because that's not really normal. And when I say new normal, by the time next month, the way technology goes, we will have so much more different platforms and different ways of doing things that really we're going to be changing dynamics of function. And therefore, for some of us, we have to reinvent, or rather look at how our skills can be used differently and how we can invest these skills in different dynamics, because where we have come from and where we are, these skills may not be needed. So it's very much intriguing of how to work this difference. And I want to leave you with that thought. If I am transitioning, please, I need to do that with some patience. I need to do that with accommodation rather than with aggression or silence or even the collaboration part. Yes, we need to collaborate. We will look at that too. But I think we need to accommodate first. This is one time you have to learn to accommodate the newness before we even can start to collaborate. So let's accommodate the newness. Let's say, yes, we're going to have less people. We're going to have different noise levels. We are going to have different functions. Let me learn to accept this and work it out. So let's see how much we can keep our own temperance and work on our own blood pressure systems so that adrenaline is going to be at its resting place, not overactive, not underactive, not causing anxiety or causing weaknesses and diarrhea and faintness. No, we are going to be at that place what we call homeostasis, working out together how we will differentiate now and then by what? Accommodating and agreeing that we have to change. So, until Tuesday, this is a different world, and we are going to work out that harmoniously for tomorrow. So, it's Friday. Monday morning comes and you're out again. Some people are going to be doing different things again. Some people are going to be back out to work. They haven't been there. So please, let's not just say, I wish I was still home because I got so accustomed. No, let's say thank you for an opportunity to prove difference and to show that all things work together for good to those that love God. So